Hey, it's Matt, your average gamer, and this is going to be a really fun video. Probably one of the most fun videos that I've ever done, and this is going to be 5 of the best weapons and spells to buff to do ridiculous levels of damage. We're on New Game Plus 7 for all the footage here, and we're going to be absolutely destroying things and doing a ton of damage. All of these videos will be in the description below, by the way, for further details if you want stats at 150 and all that. Now, this is the Giant's Crusher. The first one we're going to start with has incredibly high damage for buffing its base. Now, there's a difference between when you use the Fire Crusher and the regular Crusher, depending on your enemy, if they're fire resistant or not, because a lot of the bosses in the game have 0 fire resistance, and then the tree avatars are weak to fire. But for the regular heavy affinity that we go here, we're going to low health proc the Black Dumpling. We're going to use Blood Boil, Aromatic, or Halashabriri, and then things like Golden Vow. And then we're going to add some Fetid Pots in there to buff this even further, and then use Royal Knight's Resolve on the Giant's Crusher to absolutely destroy enemies with it. And even on New Game Plus 7, a lot of field bosses and such can be one hit, which is awesome. I'm going to have the setups for each one of these as well, and the buffing order you'll be able to see on screen. Now, for the Fire Crusher, the only real big difference here is you can change out one talisman if you want to use the Fire Scorpion Charm and the Fire tier, but the main difference here is that we're going to use Flame Grant Me Strength instead of Blood Boil, Aromatic, or Halashabriri, because that's going to give us 20% additional fire and physical damage so that you can crush pretty much all the tree avatars in the game in a single hit, which is absolutely awesome. And they're weak to fire to begin with, and then just getting hit with the Fire Crusher does a ton of damage to them. We're low health proccing for the Red Feathered Branch Sword. We're using the Black Dumpling, proccing that. We're using Golden Vow, Flame Grant Me Strength, and we're poison proccing as well. As you can see the order on screen, and then going up behind the tree avatar here to do massive damage. 23,300, I believe that was. Pretty incredible. The Fire Giant Crusher and the Heavy Giant Crusher, awesome. For this personal favorite, we have the Heavy Giant's Crusher or Fire Crusher plus 25, Seppuku Sword to bring your health down, any seal will do, Mushroom Crown and Black Dumpling, Axe Talisman, Lord of Blood's Exaltation or Fire Scorpion Charm, Red Feathered Branch Sword, Kindred of Rot's Exaltation, and then we have the Fire tier, Charge tier, Blood Boil Aromatic, Fetid Pots, and Boluses. Next up is the Lightning build. Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike can be buffed like crazy. It can be buffed to one-shot the majority of bosses in the game. We're going to talk about this and the buffing order that I use for it. It causes a lot of damage. It just does a lot of damage. It's quite ridiculous. ADLS has been fantastic since launch. It's one of the best faith things that you can possibly buff. And even on New Game Plus 7 here, most of the bosses don't stand a chance. Now we're going to show off the build here, but we're going to go over the buffing order after this. Now for certain bosses, you'll have to buff differently or kind of move towards them, like Placidusax. It's a little tricky because you want to poison proc right before you get to him. But he can be one-shot just like the majority of bosses in the game. Simply either behind him or in front of him. You want all of the lightning to hit him. It honestly will completely obliterate him if you use the right buffs and such. Even if you don't get it in one cast, 2 cast absolutely destroys him. He'll never get into second phase if you use this buffing system and then you're using Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike. It does a ton of damage to him. So we're going to use Seppuku to bring our HP down, but the last thing that you want to do to bring your HP down is to proc the Black Dumpling. That'll give you an extra 10% damage for 1 minute, and that'll get you into the low health range. It's the last thing that you want to do. As for the buffs, you're going to drink your tier, your Wondrous Physics, and your Lightning tier, and then you're going to want to use Golden Vow, the longer buffs first. The last thing that you want to do is use the Jellyfish Shield, Halashabriri, and then throw the Poison Pots. The reason for that is because they're all short duration. That order is going to give you a lot of damage. It's going to be a very easy order, very forgiving, and it's going to give you a massive boost in damage. Some people ask me why I don't use Commander's Standard. It's because it's got such a long duration. It's not worth the 5% more than Golden Vow since they override each other. I'm not a fan of the duration of the action. It takes a lot. It's a very long duration. Seppuku's long too. I like the poison pots, and honestly, since I one-shot the final boss of the game on the max scaling, I just one-shot Placidusax here. This buffing system works quite well. There isn't too many issues there. Everybody's got their own style, but this is just how I do it, what works for me. I use the Golden Order Seal if you're over leveled. It beats the Gravelstone Steel's boost at 80/80. Seppuku Sword to bring your health down. Jellyfish Shield, Black Dumpling and Mushroom Crown, Godfrey Icon, Lightning Scorpion Charm, Red Feathered Branch Sword, Kindred of Rot's Exaltation, we have the Lightning Tier, Fetid Pots, and Boluses. Now on to another fun one, as you're already seeing this here. It's Marais Executioner Sword. Marais Executioner Sword, even on New Game Plus 7, still has a ton of damage. It is highly buffable. It can one-shot a lot of things. And in general, even if you're just using the base build for it, it's very, very, very damaging. Yes, it's got a slow cast time, or Ash of War rather, but it doesn't really matter that it's slow, because most of the time you're going to be able to two-shot whatever you're fighting anyway, even with some basic buffs and whatnot. Marais Executioner Sword is very strong. It's an awesome weapon. So for buffing this, it's nothing too crazy for me. I just use the Black Dumpling that I proc. I'm not going for the low HP version, so I use the Ritual Swords Talisman. Heal up, use Golden Vow. You can poison proc this if you want, but it's not really necessary since it gets a boost from all the consecutive attack bonuses in the game with its Ash of War. And then Hellish Shabriri is excellent as well, because that's always going to give you 25% additional generic damage that works for pretty much everything. By the way, if you're not subbed and you love overpowered PvE builds in Elden Ring, definitely hit that subscribe button. This channel has been growing a ton lately. I'm going to continue to make awesome builds, keep it going, and it's just been awesome. It's been a great community. We have a Discord now and everything. I'll leave that in the description below as well. And there's going to be 2 more awesome ones after this, and we're going to go over the stats and equipment for this build as well, because Marais Executioner absolutely wrecks. And this one isn't even too complicated to use. Again, it benefits from all the successive attack stuff pretty much in the game. So we have Marais Executioner Sword, we have Seppuku Sword to bring your HP down, any seal will do, Black Dumpling, Godfrey Icon, Shard of Alexander, Melissen's Prosthesis, and then I didn't have Rotten Winged on this character, but that's what you would use instead of Ritual Swords Talisman, and then the consecutive attack tier as well. I hope that helps, by the way. If you're using Marais Executioner, it's a good setup. Definitely throw Rotten Winged in there. You're going to want that. Next up is Comet Azur. Obviously, it has to go in here. Comet Azur is absolutely awesome. It completely destroys the majority of bosses in the game, and you can buff it to do even further damage than it normally does. With a good setup, Comet Azur can pretty much destroy everything. It's awesome. It's been used since launch is one of the best spells in the game, super powerful, and again, with the right setup, does ridiculous levels of damage. So as far as buffing this, we just need to have a little faith. No, for real though, Golden Vow and Hellish Shabriri are great now. Hellish Shabriri's boost, I think in 1.07 or so, when they pushed it to 40 seconds instead of 20, does great for Comet Azur because it's going to last the entire beam now. So we're going to use Golden Vow, Hellish Shabriri, and then of course we're going to use the Jellyfish Shield. I have Lucette's Staff on my level 200 Mage, and then we're going to use Terra Magica before we cast Comet Azur. And make sure you drink your flask last 2, because that has the infinite tier in it. That's going to be the last thing that you do. And then send out your Comet Azur beam, and you're going to do massive damage, destroying the majority of bosses in the game, and a standing target like Mog stands absolutely no chance against Comet Azur. He's pretty much just going to walk into it and get obliterated by it. He's one of the easiest bosses in the game to use Comet Azur on. Morgoth's also easy too. After the scene, if you die once and go in, he also does the same thing. So for my Comet Azur setup, I have Lucette's Staff, obviously fully upgraded. Any seal will do. The Jellyfish Shield. We have the Glintstone Crown for the Comet Azur boost. Graven Mask Talisman, Graven School Talisman, Ritual Swords Talisman, Magic Scorpion Charm, and then the Magic Tier as well. And then obviously the last one here is going to be Night Comet. Night Comet is awesome, okay? It doesn't do the ridiculous levels of damage of Comet Azur, but its range, I'm going to show you some stuff with this. It's highly buffable, and it's one of the most convenient weapons to use, or spells rather, as a mage. It's fantastic. I love Night Comet. It can be boosted by 30% and 30% by having 2 Staves of Loss, totaling 60% additional damage before buffs. And it amounts to a lot of damage. Again, my mage is also on New Game Plus 7. I think my mage is on Journey 12 or so, and then my main character, which is now the ADLS character, is I think on like 19 or something in my last video. So that's pretty much my main character at this point. As far as this goes, Night Comet is amazing. For this, you can use the Black Dumpling beforehand. You can obviously drink your flask for the magic damage. This is boosted by the Godfrey Icon when it's charged. You can use Terra Magica to boost this, and Golden Vow and Hellish Shabriri as well. And it does insane levels of damage. So much for this very tough dual gargoyle boss fight. Not much to worry about here. It has incredible range as well, which makes it even stronger, and you can do anywhere from about 4,000 upwards of 10,000 damage on hit, especially if you hit like Dragon's Head and such, which we're going to show now. You can do even more damage with this. It's highly buffable and very powerful. So sneakily, we're going to throw in one of my favorite bosses in the game. I honestly think he's one of the coolest bosses in the game. From the Halloween type theme music that you get to the death lightnings, everything about the fight is just really cool. But unfortunately for the dragon here, we have Night Comet, and Night Comet's absolutely going to destroy him. Don't mind me getting hit by fire and whatnot, but as you can tell, again, massive damage with Night Comet. It really is fantastic. Night Comet is highly buffable, does a ton of damage, and it has ridiculous levels of range too. Oh, and did I mention if you're fighting bosses like Belania, she can't see it, so she'll get hit by it no matter what and doesn't dodge it, which is awesome. So for this, we have 2 Staves of Loss for the 60% boost. Any seal will do. We still have the Glintstone Crown on. Not sure if that buffs anything here, but I just like it for the looks. Graven Mask Talisman. We have the Godfrey icon, which will boost this, Ritual Scourge Talisman, Magic Scorpion Charm, and then the Magic Tear as well. Virtually all of these, by the way, can be done at 150, if not maybe a little bit more than 150 by investing a lot into one stat. If you're not subbed to this channel and you love overpowered PvE builds, definitely sub to this channel. It's growing and we're going to keep this thing going. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll catch you guys there.